Elements in the universe. About 5 billion years ago, a huge star exploded. The blast sent a giant cloud of gas and dust into space. Over the next few million years, gravity pulled the bits of gas and dust closer together. Finally, the tiny particles formed the solar system. The sun, the planets, and everything on them came from that space cloud. Everything in the world, including you, is made of stardust. What was the stardust made of? Elements. Particles of all 90 naturally occurring elements were flying around in that space cloud. And when Earth formed, all 90 elements became part of our planet. Next page. Elements in the sun. Our star, the sun, has mass and occupies space. It is matter. All matter is made up of elements. The sun is no exception. If you could separate the sun's elements and put them in piles, the pile of hydrogen would be the largest. The sun is about 70% hydrogen by weight. The next largest pile would be helium. The sun is about 23% helium. The next three elements are in very small piles: 0.9% oxygen, 0.3% carbon, and 0.1% nitrogen. The sun is mostly hydrogen and helium, with small amounts of other elements. Name the sun's elements. You should have come up with hydrogen, helium, oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen. What two elements is the sun mostly made of? You should have gotten hydrogen and helium. Here it shows the sun and the 5 elements that make up the sun: hydrogen, helium, oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen. Hydrogen and helium are the 2 elements that mostly make up the sun. The next section, Earth elements. The planet we live on, Earth, is made of all 90 naturally occurring elements. But the elements are not all found in equal abundance. Some elements are common and others are extremely rare. Those elements in the periodic table that you never heard of are the rare ones. The most abundant Earth elements are, I don't know, look at your picture and tell me, what are the most abundant elements? Abundant means most commonly found. You should have said iron and oxygen. These are the 2 most abundant elements found on Earth. The most abundant element on Earth is iron, 35%. The massive core of the planet is mostly iron. Next are oxygen, magnesium, and silicon. These 3 elements are the main elements in minerals and rocks. They make up the largest part of the planet, the mantle and crust. The other major elements that make up Earth are nickel, 2.7%, sulfur, 2.7%, calcium, 0.6%, and aluminum, 0.4%. The remaining 82 elements together make up a tiny 0.6% of the Earth. It might seem that Earth is a pretty simple place. It's made mostly out of a dozen or so elements. But Earth is not a simple place. It is not the number of elements that determines how complex things are. It's the ways the elements combine to make different substances. These few elements can combine to make millions of different materials. That's where the wonderful variety on Earth comes from. About how many elements make up Earth? You should have said about a dozen or 12. As it says right here in the reading, it's not the number of elements that determines how complex things are. It's the ways the elements combine to make different substances. Think about this. How many different elements did we see in our lab? Did we see any elements repeating? What about sodium, or oxygen, or even carbon? Did we see those in multiple substances? Yes, we did. Next page. Elements in the sky. The atmosphere surrounding Earth is matter in its gas phase. Matter is made of elements. What elements are in the atmosphere? The atmosphere is mostly nitrogen. The second most abundant element is oxygen. The third most common element is the noble gas argon. Less than 1% of the atmosphere is argon. The other elements in the air are present in small quantities. Carbon dioxide gas in the air has the element carbon. Water in the air has the element hydrogen. Smoke from fires and exhausts from industries and motor vehicles add more elements to the air. Some of these elements can damage plants and animals. Mercury, lead, and some substances containing sulfur and nitrogen can be health hazardous. What is the most abundant element in the atmosphere? You should have said nitrogen. What are the other two common elements? You should have said oxygen and argon. What are some other elements seen in our atmosphere? Some of the other elements are carbon, hydrogen, mercury, lead, sulfur, and nitrogen. Are there elements in our atmosphere that can harm us? Yes. Next section. Elements in the ocean. The ocean covers almost 3/4 of Earth's surface, and the ocean is deep. That adds up to a lot of water, and water is made of two elements. For this reason, the ocean is 85% oxygen and 11% hydrogen. Because seawater is salty, it contains a lot of other elements. The most common, salt, is sodium chloride, or NaCl. Many other kinds of salt are dissolved in the sea too. As a result, chlorine, 2%, is the third most abundant element in the sea, and sodium, 1%, is the fourth most abundant. All 86 of the other elements are in the sea as well. For billions of years, water has been washing across the land, flowing into rivers, and finally making its way to the sea. All of the elements dissolved by water on land end up in Earth's ocean. That means there is gold in seawater. The problem is how to get it out. What are the two most common substances in the sea? Oxygen and hydrogen. Talk to a partner and answer this question. How do all 90 elements end up in the sea? Talk to the person next to you now. What was your answer? It should have sounded something like this. For billions of years, water has been washing across the land, flowing into rivers, and finally making its way to the sea. All of the elements dissolved by water on land end up in Earth's ocean. Turn the page. Next section. Elements in you. You are made of elements in the periodic table. How many of the 90 elements do you think it takes to make a person? Ask the person next to you now. Let's find out. You probably have a trace amount of every element in your body. That's because elements are found everywhere, including in our air, water, and food. For instance, helium is in the air in tiny amounts. Small amounts of helium enter our bodies when we breathe. We don't need helium to survive, but it's there. Other elements are essential for life. We need tiny amounts of some elements, like chlorine and iodine. But we need large amounts of others, such as carbon and oxygen. The human body is about 75% water. Water is made from the elements hydrogen and oxygen. Much of the solid mass of your body is made from the element carbon combined with other elements. Carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen combine to form carbohydrates, sugars and starches, lipids, oils and fats, and proteins. Proteins also contain nitrogen. Skin, muscle, fat, and organs are made of carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. The tough, rigid parts of the body, like teeth, bones, and cartilage, are rich in the element calcium. Blood contains a lot of iron. Potassium and sodium are needed for nerve and brain function. When you add it all up, about 98.5% of the human body is composed of only 6 elements. They are oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, and phosphorus. The remaining 1.5% is small amounts of a lot of different elements. What are the 6 main elements humans are made of? You should have said oxygen, carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, calcium, and phosphorus. What makes up 75% of our bodies? Your answer should have been water. Continuing on to the next page. Most living organisms are chemically very similar to humans, so it's pretty safe to say that all life is based on the same 6 elements. The trees and other plants are mostly carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. So, are birds, insects, and spiders living in and among the plants? And anything we use that comes from organisms such as wood, leather, paper, cotton, fabrics, plastics, food, and fuels is also made of these 6 elements. So what elements are found in the universe? The answer is all of them. And which elements are abundant? Only a few. Common matter is made mostly of just a handful of elements. Answer the review questions on another sheet of paper. Make sure you do 1 through 4. Put your name, date, and turn it in.